Welcome everybody to the Alpha J Show. I am your host, the Alpha J, and I do not watch Family Guy that much anymore. I don't know many people who do. However, I do know that it's very popular, so I am in a minority when it comes to stuff like this. And that's fine. You see, every critic has their pet peeve. Some critics hate character abuse above all, others hate bad morals above all. I don't know if this will be permanent from my end, but for me, most of the worst episodes in any series comes from ignorance. When an episode is based on the concept that clearly won't work without morphing the moral standings of other characters usually brings up the worst intentions. You can already link some of the episodes I've already did to ignorance. In the first episode, the Amazing World of Gumball review that I did, every character except Gumball and Darwin were ignorant. They couldn't see what was clearly in front of them. In the Mighty Bee review, every character except Bessie was ignorant. They did not see how changing the fundamentals of the bees was going to cause a rift in the effort put into the bees. So clearly, if I point this out, you should already be expecting a concept that clearly can't work in Family Guy. But this is Family Guy, right? They can get away with it, right? Well, in a sense, yes. They do things to shock you, but this doesn't shock me. It doesn't stir controversy with me. Because I know it's Family Guy. It's like watching the same horror movie over and over. It's not going to shock you anymore because they don't change anything up. They deliver the same content to you over and over. And it never shocks you because you know that the shocking things are going to happen and you know they don't mean it. It just shows how stupid they are. Bear in mind though, this is my first Fox show review. And if it goes off good and the episode stays up for a long time, I will continue. However, if it doesn't, I'm still going to get my thoughts out. It will just be over still frames, and I'll try to cut back on the video examples that I use. So let's check out Hot Pocket Dial. So the episode starts off in this restaurant the family is at called Smitty's.
Dad, can you pass the bread?
Sure, but don't forget the butter that looks like decorative bathroom soaps and is impossible to smear.
Thanks, Dad. This really ruins it.
What can I say about these jokes that no one else hasn't? Does anyone really sit at home and point at their TV going, haha, hey, that's me, I always go through this? Because I don't want to work so hard to get taken down. Let's just move on to the more important parts.
Yeah, now turn around and lay an egg on the glass. Ah, yeah. I defy you to tell me exactly what's wrong with this.
Aren't you supposed to be running around? Don't talk to me. You have a bad reputation in the chicken community.
Ha! Using cutaway gags to defeat the purpose for using cutaway gags. Come at me. So the family gets ready to leave, and the show tries to make you cringe with Peter attempting to eat a toothpick. Except they already did this joke with a cigarette. So this episode wants to show Peter using a toothpick, except they don't, and I'll show you why later.
Chris, now that I'm a toothpick guy, it's my job to sit on a BMX bike outside the rec center and ask every kid if they're the new kid. Hey, you the new kid?
Ha ha, it's funny, but it's not, cause you're not even trying. Can you believe that they come back from a cutaway just to jump to another cutaway? Did you see that? They are padding this episode to tell jokes about the toothpick when it's not about the toothpick because these jokes would have worked without the toothpick just as much, even though the jokes were comically bankrupt from the beginning. What I'm trying to say with this is supposed to be adult entertainment. I'm 18. If I'm too old for We Bare Bears, then how come that show has more substance than this show, and this show is telling toothpick jokes? Yeah, keep using that mindless comedy argument. It'll get you real far.
When are you gonna get rid of that toothpick? It's disgusting and it's starting to smell.
Why would I give it up? It's getting me tons of tail.
What?
Excuse me?
Why would I give it up? It's getting me tons of tail.
What?
Can you repeat that? Can we show that clip again?
When are you gonna get rid of that toothpick? It's disgusting and it's starting to smell.
Why would I give it up? It's getting me tons of tail.
What?
Tail. As in rear ends. As in woman? You made a joke about cheating in this episode of all episodes, and Lois just brushed it off. Now, keep this in mind. This line is going to show how sloppy this entire episode is. Now, Peter does this stupid toothpick flip with his tongue, and the toothpick ends up going down his throat.
Oh my God, are you alright?
So they decide to go back to the restaurant to get another toothpick and gross out. Gotta show in that gross out with the pointless cutaways and shock humor. As they leave, however, they see Quagmire and her transgender mother Ida. Lois shoots in some backhanded remarks and they end up sitting down for dinner.
And then I said something random that suggested a whole crazy story.
And I suggested an animated adult series going 14 seasons in that will be very envious of a more modern show that portrays comedy much better. So Lois embarrasses herself even more and then they're off to leave. Remember this for me. Alright, so before we get off into the real plot, mind you that they spend the first 6 minutes with a toothpick plot that was completely unnecessary to the entire episode. The only argument that you could give is that the toothpick gave Peter a reason to return to the restaurant to find Glenn, who would then go through with this part of the episode. But let me ask you this. What if when the family walked out the first time and they were getting ready to leave from Smitty's, as they were going to walk out, Peter and Lois find Ida and Quagmire just settling down the first time they were there. Then this entire toothpick scene was completely useless. Glenn Quagmire admits that, you know what, I want him to explain this.
I want Lois. She's perfect. I've loved her for years. She's warm and kind and beautiful. I've never been so in love with anyone. Brian, Cheryl was the one that got away. She was the great love of my life. I thought this was my chance to finally achieve some real happiness. Ever since she left, I've been chasing girls to fill the hole she made when she walked out. And now I'm forever lost.
Another pointless cutaway and they come back home to the babysitter, Carter's dad. Which, if we're going off of the information given to us, Peter said the kids would start being racist if they were around Carter too long. Being that 2 of their 3 kids are near/already adult, this is season 14, why do they need a babysitter? Again, this is another part of the episode where the only reason it is there is to shoehorn a lot of relatable humor, where the scenes can be cut out entirely. Sorry if I come off a bit preachy, but they're doing this to waste your time. Do you like having your time wasted on subpar comedy? If so, I'm sorry, but this is unacceptable even by basic storytelling standards. They clearly had a half-baked idea. It's 8.5 minutes, and after 5 minutes of toothpick jokes and like 1 minute of pointless cutaways, they're finally getting into what sets up the plot. So that leaves you with 2 minutes of actual substance.
I want Lois. She's perfect. I've loved her for years. She's warm and kind and beautiful. I've never been so in love with anyone.
Oh my God! Quagmire's in love with my wife?
Excuse me? You didn't know that Quagmire has a deeply rooted love for your wife? Okay. Let me try to get my mind off this. Okay, so how do you pocket dial someone with a smartphone? I thought that's why lock screens were invented. You can use the excuse that he may have somehow swiped in his passcode, or maybe he doesn't have a lock screen, which, at least on the iTouch products, you would still need to swipe to the side to use. But since Family Guy is so stiff with its animation in this episode, if Quagmire is sitting on a flat surface, which he would be, there is no way he could have pocket dialed someone unless he deliberately called Peter in the amount of time he looked at Lois and turned off his phone. Survey says...
Perfect. Well, good night, you guys.
In other words, this fails. So Peter confronts Brian on his advice on what to do about this.
But can you believe Quagmire?
Well, I guess it's not that shocking. I mean, he has said 100 times that he wants to bang Lois.
No, that's just Quagmire being a horn dog. This is love.
Wait a minute. Okay, so I have 2 questions I want to ask. Okay, firstly, so this is okay.
Perfect.
But admitting something about another person verbally where no one is harmed directly is not okay. Okay. So you didn't know? You had an entire episode around this from your perspective and you didn't know. Okay. So Peter is officially no longer allowed to be called a dynamic character, even when they're bad. Let's take other cartoons that are, let's say, aimed for kids. You have Ed from Ed, Edd n Eddy. Every time you see him, he is consistently acting the same way, using the same logic. For example, he loves comic book monsters. he loves Chunky Puffs. You don't see him in one episode loving these things and then in another episode resenting these things. Then you have Richard from The Amazing World of Gumball. You don't see him working hard one day and then being lazy another day, because in his character is to be consistently stupid and lazy. And since this episode isn't subverting anything, this episode is made to be watched in a serious manner.
The guy's been sitting next to me all these years acting like he's my friend when all he really wants is to be with my wife.
Is that right? So it's not okay to use offhanded remarks about cheating. Wait, hold up. What was it that you said earlier?
Why would I give it up? It's getting me tons of tail.
What?
So Brian tells Peter to ignore it, and obviously, let me just cut to the chase, Peter doesn't ignore it.
Wait a minute, how the hell did you get that recording, Peter?
You pocket dialed me, you bastard!
I'm still questioning on how a person on a smartphone can pocket dial. Even if he did, and Peter didn't pick up, which would be like at least 30 or 40 seconds of ringing, the voicemail wouldn't have started recording immediately. Yes, I am picking at this, because apparently they think that that's a plot point for Peter fighting with Quagmire. This is something that's supposed to be fresh and exciting in season 14, despite Brian already having an episode doing the same thing. And by the way, when Brian did it, he actually came on to Lois, and they settled that in a day, but Quagmire merely mentions it, and he's just not allowed to talk to Peter anymore. Lois plays the backhanded remarks card again and assures Peter that no one is going to take her away from him. But what she really should say is, Peter, I've slept with so many men that you know and don't know about. I released a porno with another man and slept with one of the men that you worship. Our marriage is barely anything sacred, and if there was an alternate reality where me and Quagmire were married, it would be much better. So there is really no reason to be with you. Do I sound toxic? It's because this episode is trying to disregard the years upon years of character development just to give us this episode. And it doesn't work because we all know the status quo is God, which basically means that everything that happens in this episode is going to reset and everything will be back to normal again. I know that this episode is not going to end with Quagmire and Peter as enemies. This episode doesn't have the decency to portray this in a serious matter because it's a comedy. Therefore, the pacing and the tension is basically shipwrecked from the beginning. And lastly, this is supposed to be what I'm watching. This is the supposed adult entertainment. I'm having way more fun ripping this apart than watching it.
Can't believe this. I thought Quagmire was my friend.
You shot Quagmire. Again, this episode is trying to tell me that a pocket dial of someone giving their feelings about another person is the worst offense when Peter has done and taken worse. Hey Family Guy, you shot yourself in the foot with this episode because you've done worse. So now, as a former fan, I'm desensitized to you trying to tell me that a simple, indirect remark about another man's wife is enough for an episode. Mind you, at this point, Quagmire has slept with everyone's wife except Lois and tried to get with Meg.
If he was just home busting one to his buddy's wife, hell, we've all done that.
What? You wish your friends were jerking off to your wife. You wish that Quagmire's love for Lois was merely about sex. So you want Quagmire to objectify your wife. Again, making jokes about other wives and cheating is okay when Peter does it because it's a joke.
I've heard. Allegedly. But not often. And never to Donna. Except when she wore those shiny gold shorts to parent-teacher night. But if Quagmire actually has feelings for you, I'm afraid he might take you away from me.
Look, now that this is settled, maybe you and Glenn can put this behind you.
No way! How am I supposed to be friends with someone who's in love with my wife?
And he has slept in the same bed with Lois for years. And when you were shipwrecked, in your face, she admitted to being open to the idea of sleeping with Brian.
Shame. 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 Shame.
So Glenn sees Lois in the supermarket and hides. However, there's no way he can fit behind the stand and not fit behind the stand at the exact same time. And from that point of view, the cart should be in the shop, but that's nitpicking. Long story short, now Glenn can't trust himself around Lois and decides to move out.
Mr. Quagmire, which box do these beads go in?
Let me smell them. They go in the big box.
Wait, so you carried the beads all the way out of the house, all the way down the front lawn, and towards the truck, and not once you did not stop to ask Quagmire which box it belonged in?
We never got to do that Joe Quagmire lunch.
Hey boss, I forgot to add in the cutaway of Quagmire and Joe's lunch. Should I talk to the editors about it?
Nah, it's okay. No one will notice.
Peter gives one more kick to the nards, and Quagmire drives off. They decide to cut straight to the chase. Peter, Joe, and Cleveland realize that their chats are no longer fun without Quagmire. So, naturally, Peter goes into a depression, drinking heavily.
I moved away, but you can't just sit around the house and drink all day.
It's all your fault Quagmire fell in love with you. Traipsing around in your tan pants and your green shirt and your...
The good thing about being a YouTube reviewer is that I get cards. And I'm going to use my get out of criticism because character may not know what they're saying because they're drunk card.
your soothing voice.
My fault?
Jeez, say it. Don't grind it. Any more whiny and I'm going to have to put you in Alcoholics Anonymous.
Yeah, everything is messed up. I lost my best friend. My buddies are all fighting. That chick at work is saying stuff that ain't true.
Buddies are all fighting. Buddies are all fighting. Yet no. Last time I checked, you were the only one to call out Joe, and that was it. You do realize that you caused everything that has happened to you, right? Brian told you to ignore it. What did you do? You didn't and decided to fight. Lois told you to go patch things up. You decided not to and let Quagmire consider moving. Cleveland told you to talk to Quagmire before he drove away, and what did you do? You decided to flip him off. So, it only makes sense to say that you are the reason that you are depressed. And I'm not made of stone. I understand what it can be like when someone close to you has strong feelings for your significant other. But if you trust them, that shouldn't matter. In real life, if you trusted someone like Quagmire, that's your own fault. If you found out that your friend has slept with all of your best friends, significant others, and has had his eyes on yours, and you just now notice, you're ignorant to reality. This isn't something I'm looking deep into. Everything I claimed, I've shown you a clip of another episode. This isn't for kids either, so don't even try to pull that card. You decided not to trust Quagmire, and in the most hypocritical way possible, you decided to end the friendship. And now you want to blame others for what you did? So Lois and Peter go over to Quagmire's new place, and since there's 2 minutes left in this episode, they have to wrap up years of built-up perverted ignorance into somehow getting them all to love each other again. So they admit that they're horrible people, yeah, big surprise, and say that they shouldn't be judged on those thoughts because everyone has those thoughts.
The secret to happiness is burying all your true feelings and living a life of bland compromise.
You know, this may go against my main argument, but what did Quagmire do in this episode that was worse than Peter? Just merely mention that he loves Lois? If anything, Peter should be getting this intervention right now. Twice he mentioned sleeping with other women and is just a horrible person overall. The moral that they went for is everyone has thoughts that they morally shouldn't have and that we're all horrible people on the inside, therefore we should just accept that and just be friends. But the moral they should have went for is to either trust your friends unless they give you a reason not to, or if they're just known not to be trustworthy. And if they're known not to be trustworthy and they're still your friend and you're having this problem, it is your fault. Again, they made Quagmire out to be the bad guy when Peter threw out every logic, even stupid logic, out the window for this hack of a plot that wasn't even funny or insightful. And to those who say Family Guy is a comedy and that I should not take the story seriously, and you still believe that I should not be doing my review this way, fine. I'll judge it as a comedy. It's boring. None of the jokes are funny. The references aren't relatable to me. None of the comedy hit home for me. Therefore, it is not funny to me. Alpha, out. Alright, cut it out, cut the music. Look, Family Guy can do whatever they want with their product, but I'm going to react accordingly. If this is what they want to pass off as comedy or something of substance, then I will point out how it is or how it's not. It's mindless comedy that is really just preachy and inconsistent with its quality and is trying to be something that it's not. And being one of the most profitable animated adult pieces of entertainment still running, I find your lack of quality very unacceptable. I know you wouldn't listen to a guy with less subscribers than you have viewers, but I would rather you not. I'd rather you run this into the ground, and when you recognize why, I want to laugh at the excuses you give. So this is my first Family Guy review, and I'm probably going to hold off so I can see how this video goes with Fox and the copyright. But I really didn't like it, and this is actually one of the very few reviews that I'm going to be doing where the episode I didn't like was so bad that it actually pained me to get through this. I did not want to watch this after the first time that I saw it, but I just wanted to talk about it just to get it out of the way. So if you've made it this far, I hope your day was well spent, and I hope your time was well spent. Alpha, out.